The pandemic was like the best thing that could have happened to us, I
Okay.
believe, honestly, because it gave us perseverance, and it allowed, we had to, as soon as we saw it coming down the pipe, we were like, okay, we have to think about how can we still operate in this world.
If you believe we can change the narrative, if you believe we can change our communities, if you believe we can change the outcomes, then we can change the world. I'm Rob Richardson. Welcome to Disruption Now. Welcome to Disruption Now. I'm your host and moderator, Rob Richardson. With me is Jabari Johnson, who is an innovator, and he's the man who saw the vision for creating a live space, interactive content that reached out to Black folks and was something that was curated for them. And he had that vision in 2014, and the company has grown and he's pivoted, and we're going to talk to him about his journey. Jabari, how you doing, brother?
I'm doing very well. Thank you so much for having me on, Rob. Really appreciate it.
Oh, no problem. So the name of your company is Colors Worldwide. And, you've had some success, and this thing is a constant journey in entrepreneurship, and the journey keeps changing. I'm curious, though, if you can take me back and just to give us some idea, if you were to talk to your younger self, maybe even as an entrepreneur, it could be earlier, whenever, what advice would you give yourself? And then what advice would you ignore?
I think I would give myself the advice, my younger self, I would definitely say like to whoever can stay in it the longest, you know what I mean? It may seem hard, or it may seem like you want to give up at times, or you want to like change things. But I think that if you keep doing something consistently and you keep seeing some sort of signs of progress, you're always going to get some level of success. So oftentimes, I think that's probably what I would tell my younger self, is just like, you don't know how long this journey is going to be, but if you just stick with it, then success is probably around the corner. Now that corner might be years and years and years away, but nothing is really fast when you're trying to create something really great. So that's the advice I would give myself, definitely.
And the view of social media and others is that it's instant. They see it and it feels like, well, wow, man, Jabari's out there. How did he get to be like, he's making his company's millions of dollars. Like, man, like he did that really quick. And it looks that way because people usually don't focus on the process. But why is that? Why was that advice you gave yourself? Like, is there a moment that goes back in your mind, like you just were ready to give up? You just thought, and you just because it wasn't producing the results you wanted, or you were just frustrated, or what?
It wasn't necessarily that I was ready to give up. I don't think I was ever really ready to give up, but I think that I was ready for certain things to happen on my time. So like,
I understand.
I wanted to be at a certain level when I thought I had put in the work, or I wanted, the audience to be here, or I wanted to be doing these type of events, or you know what I mean? Like,
I know, especially we have similar type of businesses, a little bit different, but very similar in a lot of ways. So I understand it. I'm looking like, I've seen it. Like, man, I know I put in the work, and not that you should compare yourself to others, but I'm like, all right, look, I put in the work. I know I have the content. Why aren't we seeing these astronomical numbers that
exactly?
There's a lot of reasons for that, though, right? Like, had I started on YouTube in 2010, the numbers it's different, right? Because like the real estate was smaller, your universe could expand. So this is why I tell folks, Jabari, like, you got to move, and it's something I want to talk to you offline about. But like, we're moving into this third space of the internet right now, into the blockchain, specifically really go in deep with NFTs. Because right now, that moment, A, I think it's a long-term play. But B, right now, that moment with NFTs is where the moment 10 years ago was with social media, right?
Yes.
Right. So like there's the community, it's kind of big, but it's still small enough where if you're in that, you'll grow, you'll have the attention.
Yeah, you still kind of have the opportunity to get like first mover advantage right now.
Exactly. Yep. And there are multiple first mover advantages. Doesn't have to be just one within this space, but I digress. I actually agree with you a lot. But what advice would you ignore, though? Can you think of advice that you got or that you thought was right? What advice would you ignore?
Oh, man. I would ignore. I got a lot of advice to keep a steady job. You know what I mean? Like from some managers and stuff like that. So people, when I worked at Capitol Records when I was living in New York, before I got into like events and the live space, I was doing, and I still do a lot in media and content creation. So when I was working at Capitol Records, one of my main boss, I had the opportunity to leave the company to work on a documentary project in the UK. And yeah, my boss there was just like, you should keep this steady job that you have. You shouldn't follow artists or like, and like the artists and the management company were going to pay for me to go out there and like make this documentary and sort of, just try something that I had never done before.
And this was early on in your career, right?
Yeah, super early on in my career. Yeah. This was like probably 10 years ago now.
That's definitely advice you should ignore.
Yeah.
To not explore early in your career. Like I think it's less than keeping if I can interject, I think it's less than keeping a steady job, because I think that there is some, if you have the type of job that you can do and support and do your passion, and you can do that till you build and scale, absolutely keep the job. Don't just jump. But to your case, what it sounds like, and let me know if I'm wrong, you have somebody that probably wanted you to stay because of your talent and didn't want you to go out there and take it. They wanted to keep you. And that's not a good mentor.
And ultimately, it was really about growth. Like, if you have a steady job that you see growth in, and that you can and that you love, and that you have a great work environment, and you enjoy the people that you work around, and you're ultimately growing, what you're doing and your role is affecting the company's growth, and the company's growth is then in turn affecting your growth, then by all means stay at that job. And I would say even like ride that until the wheels fall off, because like that's a very rare position to be in.
I would add or if you don't have a job that does that, but it's able to pay the bills and it gives you flexibility to do the things that you want to do, right? So you can build your passion, your side hustle, and it's not so overwhelming. But if the job is both overwhelming and there's no room for growth, I don't even care how much money you make. It's going to kill your soul.
Yeah, and that's what was happening. Like I was at this place, and I was feeling stagnant. I was feeling like I've done what I needed to do at this label, and then on top of that, the label was. I mean, it's a really funny story because so I was working at Capitol Records, but Capitol was owned by EMI at the time, and I kind of knew what was happening. I was always involved in like the trades and what was happening like in the press with the company, and EMI was like a sinking ship. So like there used to be 4 major record labels. It was Sony, Warner, Universal, and EMI, and EMI folded actually. And so all of the assets underneath the label, so whether it was like the smaller labels that they owned and the imprints, all got split in a sale between Sony and Universal, I believe. So like the whole building wasn't even there like a year after I left. Like it was just completely dismantled and gone, and layoffs and all kinds of stuff. So I knew it was like going that way.
Yeah, I
just wanted to get out.
You said that well, and it wasn't about growth, but I think you make an important point when people think about their careers. Like, well, I need to stay because I don't know what's going to happen. Like, you don't know what's going to happen if you stay. Like, if you stay at a job, especially a job that, again, going back to those earlier, that you don't like, that there's no room for growth. What we do know for sure it's going to happen. It's going to kill your soul. It's going to kill your passion, and that to me is enough. But you also, if it's a bad environment. It's not. I mean, they could fire you the next day. It doesn't matter how useful you are. There's this illusion that a lot of people have that if I work hard and apply myself, that's going to be the difference. No, it's not. No.
Yeah. Yep. So yeah, that would be the advice is just like that was really bad. It's just like don't do things that are gonna serve you and help you grow. That was
especially early on.
I'm glad I didn't
explore.
Yeah.
We got to keep pivoting, but you have more flexibility early on normally. And if you have the flexibility and you don't tie yourself down with a huge mortgage or something crazy, like pivot and learn, man. Explore as much as you can. So you've been a successful founder. You've built a large business at this point. What do you think is the most essential trait for a founder, especially someone that's starting off, you're building from the ground up, to be successful?
I would say vision and long-term thinking. I think those are kind of one and the same, but yeah, just like thinking about the long term, you're going to get faced with so many different challenges, and you're going to get faced with a lot of opportunities to do things that are for the short term and that will fix a problem that is going on right now. But long-term thinking, I think for any founder is everything, because that affects your entire business. That affects thinking long-term affects the people you hire, which is like some of the most important decisions that you're going to have to make.
Who you accept money from, all that stuff.
Exactly.
Yeah, because if
right.
you can accept somebody like, oh yeah, I need money right now. The terms are bad. It's somebody that doesn't have your business interest in mind. I mean, I could think of a lot of reasons. But let me challenge
even the products that you put out. You know what I mean? And even the things that you do for your business. You might say, oh well, this is our core product, but why don't we just step over here? There's like some short-term money over here. We can just do this. But your fans might always remember you, or your customers might always remember you for like that. And it might leave a stain on, what the main thing is that you do. So I just think long-term vision is huge.
So, I mean, with that, I have a lot of questions for that. Let's talk about the long-term versus the short-term.
Yeah.
I agree, thinking long-term, having vision, but there is the challenge and the reality of also surviving
absolutely
long enough.
Yeah.
So how do you balance that between not sacrificing the long-term for the short, but also not sacrificing the short-term for the long? Like, how do you balance that out? How did you successfully balance that out? Because I can tell you that's a tension for me. My guess is a tension for a lot of creative vision type leaders. We have this ideal of we want to be here and probably want to be here right now.
Yes.
But the budget allows us to be here.
Yes.
And
absolutely.
so how do you go through that tension in your mind? Does my question make sense?
Yeah, definitely. I think that it really depends on having long-term vision doesn't mean skipping ahead to the long-term, right? It just means that like you're doing stuff with the next steps in mind. So you might want to, be able to, like for me, right? I'll give you an example for our live events side of the business is like, we wanted to have a music festival. So we wanted to have an outdoor, not just a regular concert, right? We wanted to have like something that was, multiple artists, festivities for fans, and all types of activities, games. We saw ourselves producing larger scale events in the long term, and so we always thought that, but like we didn't just say before I started the company, I didn't just say, all right, well, I'm going to start with a festival. Yeah, that's how the company is going to start, right? We started by doing small concerts, small shows. We grew those. We kept growing those small shows, and then they would get a little larger, and then it was going from hundreds of people to thousands of people to, multiple thousands of people. And then we said, okay, well, now I think it's time, maybe 4 years in, just maybe 3 years in, it was we knew how to handle production with our smaller indoor concerts. We knew how to book talent because we've done that at smaller indoor shows. We knew how to have all of the legal and insurance and paperwork and venue scouting and all that stuff, but we had never done like a proper festival outdoors, something that was going to last all day. And so we started small, but we knew that was like what we wanted to get toward. And so that's what I mean, like the long-term vision. So we did what we could. And then when we did the festival, we had a lot of experience in producing smaller events. And so now we were able to produce a festival in Orlando. And that was the first time, we kind of went down that path. Now, we lost a ton of money on that festival, and we realized we probably don't need to be doing festivals, in that capacity, or we probably, we spent so much more than we needed to spend on certain things like production and all that. But yeah, it was baby steps to get to, that level. And then the next, there's another level to that. It's like, okay, well, we want to be doing multiple of these things, right? So how do we figure out how to do multiple festivals, outdoor shows, larger capacity shows, that kind of thing, and sort of tour a festival, not just tour a concert.
And that leads me to another question that's related to this. So how do you're starting to have some success. This happens to a lot of businesses, specifically Black businesses, but scaling becomes difficult. Like we're at this level where you're, and you just kind of spoke to it. Like you don't want to just have a model where you're doing one festival a year. You need to figure out how you're going to do multiple festivals, multiple events. But there's the challenge of probably capital and just probably operations. Like how do you take yourself from going from growth to being able to scale?
Yes. I think that you as well, I can speak for myself. So me as a founder in the specific space that I'm in, I did a lot of the things first, right? So like in the live event space, I did everything. We started throwing like very small parties when we began years ago. And those parties evolved into more proper shows. But I did it like everything. Like I pretty much did everything except DJ. I mean, there were times where I took the photos, took videos, times where I even worked the door, times where I hosted the shows. I was doing the accounting. I was doing everything except for like, running the bar type of, that kind of thing. How
long were you doing that? How long were you the everything man?
Just doing everything. Probably 3 years.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
That's a lot.
Probably 3 years. Yeah, for sure. And then I started to, hire one person here. I need somebody to work the door. I can't be on stage and running back and forth to the door. So it's like I hired a door person. Then I hired a photographer. And it's like slowly but surely you start hiring like these roles and you start training people on how you would like them to be done.
Yep.
But then you kind of have to just let them fly and you know what I mean? And let them do what they do. And there's going to be mistakes that are made. People are not going to do it exactly how you want it done. But I think that scaling is about replicating yourself and replicating and just finding great talent that can do what needs to be done. And eventually, can start to show you what needs to be done because you can't be everywhere at once. So that's, I think, like hiring and, not being so hands-on in every single thing. Now, at the same time, it's like, this is my company. I'm very attached to, many.
It's your name on the building at the end of the day when it goes down. Right. It'll be Jabari. They're gonna call. It's not gonna say like your graphic assistant did XYZ. They'll say Jabari.
No, yeah. So I'm very aware of what is going on. But I try to give people the autonomy that they need to get the work done that they.
Yeah, because otherwise they won't. They'll just do enough to figure out how to not piss you off, but they'll never do anything innovative. They'll never help. Because they'll feel constrained by you. So it's like, I think you said it well when you talked about the most important trait for a founder is the vision. If the vision is properly communicated and properly reinforced within the operations, people will follow through with that vision. And ideally, what I hope to do, and I'm sure you do as well, is that my vision inspires and attracts people that are dedicated to doing what the mission of the organization is. So
yes. Yep. And our mission right now, we've kind of recently changed our mission, but our mission is genre amplification. We like to identify ourselves as a genre amplification company. So we're Colors Worldwide is trying to take underserved genres and build ecosystems and communities and, frameworks and business opportunities around these underserved genres. And our first genre that we've been working on for the past few years is R&B music, because we feel like it's an underserved genre.
And what way you think it's underserved? I want to hear you. I want to talk more about that. Like, what's your thought about when you define underserved, what that means in terms of the genre?
Yeah. So underserved is when you look at R&B music as a whole. R&B music is like the root of a lot of
It is.
pop music, right?
It's the root of hip hop too.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, but the same opportunities don't lie, and you don't see like let's just take one example. In the merchandise space, right? There have been billion-dollar clothing lines that have evolved out of a hip hop, out of the genre of hip hop, right?
Yeah.
You have examples like
Fubu.
Fubu, Rockaware, Sean John. Collectively, these companies are worth billions of dollars and have moved billions of dollars. And then more recently, you see stuff like Yeezy.
Yep.
And brands of that nature. And so, but the same, you haven't really heard of that come from like R&B space, you know what I mean? Or R&B artist to go and do that with merchandise. So that's like one example, but other examples are like from a media perspective, there's just not like the definitive go-to place for, especially when we talk about contemporary R&B music. There's just not a home or a hub for content, podcasts. Even a lot of times where to find new music. A lot of times these things are just kind of lumped into like a streaming service, and they're just like a playlist.
They just throw them on, Spotify or something, and hope they get discovered without any real curation.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, some of the streaming services do a good job at curating and making playlists, but it seems like that's where it stops. It's like there's no, R&B stories being told from, a historical context of like, this is. I mean, there are so many stories that I could,
What story? Well, first of all, before you go, like, I want to know what story sticks out, and then remind me to connect you with an artist I know well, Alexander Starr. So I think you two could at least. I think there could be some exploration there. He's an independent artist, very, very, very talented brother.
Absolutely.
That I think you guys should just connect on. But go ahead. Finish.
So one of the stories that I want to explore is in like a podcast form is the story of like why Aaliyah's music is not on streaming services. And there's a lot of like,
what? I've been trying to find her music. Why isn't it though? Did you give us the brief story of that?
The brief notes, story I kind of want to know. The brief story,
because I'm trying to find it. I'm like, I was wondering about this. Like,
it's not. Her uncle / manager is the rights holder to a lot of her discography, and there's a lot of issues with him and the estate with the rights to the music. And there's various articles and stuff that sort of talk more about this and give a lot of detail, but essentially there's one guy that's kind of in control of it.
I can't see the benefit of not streaming music though.
I don't know that. I don't think that
I mean, I'm just asking.
I think that this guy is just a unique figure, and but there's so much meat and there's so much of a story there, and there's something that needs to be explored. And I think that like our platform is the perfect.
So you have you're creating a. So I didn't know this. So you're creating a podcast streaming platform to
no, just not even just our brand.
Your brand,
general,
okay.
Yeah, will be a brand that promotes, highlights, and tells various stories that are happening within the R&B community I think from past to present.
Well, we definitely need to wrap. There's a as I told you, and we'll talk a little more offline, but we're literally building a NFT platform as we speak, and and it's curated towards diverse Black and Brown artists, including music, right? And
nice.
And we want to work with people like yourself, curators, to highlight, create limited NFTs, drops, and things like that. Where the majority goes to either the collectors or the artists. Like, so our model will be like, 75, 85% goes to you guys, 15% will go back to the platform. But our goal is to, Black and brown artists create a lot of equity, but as you said, a lot of the equity doesn't flow through us for some of those reasons. Maybe it's often institutional, and then there's things that are passed down because there might be reasons why he has this belief, Aaliyah's uncle, whoever this is, and it's because of false information. I'm just guessing, right? But just these false narratives that have been passed on, and not having an understanding of how to really build a brand and scale it, because Aaliyah is it can be $1 billion brand, easy,
no doubt about it. Yeah,
easy.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I mean, and so that's just like one example. But we have some things coming up in the pipeline.
All right. What's exciting?
We have a show. We have a very unique digital show that's coming out soon, and the name of the show is called Sex Playlist. And that's really what it is. It's
Sex
basically
playlist,
like, it's
is it like it sounds?
It's just exactly like it sounds. Celebrities come on and talk about the music that's on their sex playlist. But it's
I think people would find that interesting, actually.
Yeah, it's very unique. It's going to be a very funny show. And we're in sort of pre-production on that right now.
That's awesome.
So I can't say too much more, but
all right. So
it's going to be a show that helps to amplify R&B music in a way that is sort of unconventional.
Okay, so when you're about to premiere that, you come back on, we'll definitely promote it and talk about it. That sounds
for sure.
That sounds pretty awesome. So that's it's very interesting. So let me go to another question here to change a little bit. So when you start to scale, you raise some money, and you were debating doing venture capital. And you had a chance, if I remember this correctly, someone offered you $1 million, which you could probably have used at that time.
For sure.
But you turned it down. Talk to people about the thought process, because that's, to some people, it's all $1 million is a lot of money. I'm not gonna say it's not to everybody, but especially when you're in need, when your business needs it. But you had the both courage and foresight to turn it down. How did you do that, and why did you do it?
Yeah, so we haven't raised at that point. That was about 2 years ago. We didn't raise any capital. We were just bootstrapping everything, right? So just, reinvesting back into the business. But in a live event space, cash flow is a big issue, because you're planning your calendar, and you're like planning, 6 months to a year down the road, securing venues and putting deposits down.
Everybody want their money. They don't care.
Kind of thing. Yeah. And so a lot of times you have to wait until, you're not seeing all of the recoupment of a show until after the show is over. So it's a cash flow intense business unless you really do it the right way. And so for us, we were growing and scaling, but with growth, you need, like, now we're in bigger venues. Now we need bigger production. Now we need, to make this show as big as we can make it, to please and get our fans to tell other people to come to the show. So it's all this sort of cyclical thing that is very capital intensive. And so at the time, we were reached out to by a music company in another genre. That's really sort of, they've done a lot of stuff in like the EDM world, and for us it was a great fit in terms of a partnership, because I would go to a lot of electronic shows and get inspiration for our show, because our show is a very unconventional show. It's DJ and host based. It's not artist driven. When we
that's
have
so interesting. But I want you to go into that. But that's so interesting that when people talk about creativity, you went into, you're in R&B, but you got some ideas from the EDM crowd. Like that's fascinating, because you can draw ideas and inspirations from anywhere. I mean, I hear you.
Absolutely. And so for me, I didn't see anything like this happening in just like the Black music space. I didn't see anything happening like this, and I was like, oh wow, we can go and like, borrow some stuff from this EDM culture, bring it over to us, and just put our own little spin and twist on it. And so that's what we did. And because they were doing a lot of stuff with huge electronic artists and doing huge festivals, doing huge shows. And, it seemed like that company was a fit to be behind our company from a financial perspective.
Sounds that way, but you still turned it down. This is fair.
Yeah. So I ended up not going with it and it took about 5 months of negotiation. That was like a full-time job in itself, just like going back and forth over terms. But as the 5 months kept progressing and as the negotiation kept going, a lot of things were changed. A lot of things that were not, they weren't coming up in the first 2 months. They were like changing in the next, 3 months. And it was stuff that really centered around control of the business. And
always comes down to control and finances.
Yeah. At the end of the day,
they wanted more control than you were comfortable with, essentially.
Yeah. And a lot of it was just like board control and what had to get unanimous consent to be able to be done. And, that was really what the last straw came down to for me. It was just like, I couldn't, I had already built the company to a certain point. I was like 4 years in. This wasn't something that was like, in its infancy, where I would have been much more willing to give up control.
But they knew that though, right? They knew that and thought you would, like, because this is what they realized. And I'm so glad you did. And I'm sorry to interrupt you, but you realized the value of what you created and the vision of where it could go. So that's the example of not thinking short term, because I'm sure the easier thing to do was to take that money because you were probably stressed at that point. I mean, I'm just guessing.
Definitely.
Right?
Yeah, definitely. Right? It was a time where we needed it for sure. But the thing is that, like, on the initial meeting, it was like, hey, we're not trying to control your company. We're not trying to, we're just trying to let you do. And I was like, oh, okay, cool. Oh. And I was just like, those were just words that a lot of times,
but the paper was like, say, I'm trying to control your company.
I was like, well, you guys have said this, but then, like, yo, what is this? Like, every time a decision over like $50,000 is made, I have to get board approval, and it's like, I can't.
Yeah,
I just can't do it. So I ended up turning it down. Ended up writing about it because I felt like there were a lot of other founders that needed to sort of hear that story.
Founders go through this all the time. I had, and I know I don't want to pivot to this. And I know we had, I had Max Tuckman on the show.
Who? Oh yeah.
Caribou, right? She has a similar
Caribou.
Yes, correct. And I think she had a similar. It was similar in terms of needing the money but not being a fit for her. It was predatory. They were trying to it was the same thing. They were trying to take over the company another way. Like this, they looked like they were being generous. They believed in your vision. Said they didn't want to take over your company, and they did. With her, it was the terms were so ridiculous that they wouldn't have been able to meet them. But talk through what you went through next.
Yeah. So then after that, we just again bootstrapped, did our own thing. We took some loans and did some financing like that. And then we said, well, really what happened shortly after, about a year and a half after, 1 year after, actually, to the month, right? 1 year after we don't take that money, then the pandemic hits.
What timing? What timing?
Yeah.
Live events company in the middle of a pandemic. So what did you have to do to pivot from that experience? Which obviously live events is a tough business to be in when nobody's at live events. So
So I say this though. I mean, and I'll get to why, but the pandemic was like the best thing that could have happened to us. Okay. I believe, honestly, because it gave us perseverance and it allowed we had to. As soon as we saw it coming down the pipe, we were like, okay, we have to think about how can we still operate in this world. So it was always our goal to expand our business outside of live events. We were just going to let's do live events first.
Right. COVID just accelerated your process because it forced
exactly. Let's use the capital from live events to expand into media, into putting out music, into
some people just stood there and was like, what are we gonna do? What are we gonna do?
We always knew we weren't gonna expand. But here's the thing. When we were planning to use the capital to expand into other things, we were making no capital because of the live events were shut down. So what we did was we did alternative things like we started producing drive-in shows. So we did, we would find plots of land last year that were not being in use, or a park or a golf course or something like that, and we would we got the use and the permits to use the venues, and did everything the correct way with the local government and stuff like that, and we produced drive-in shows. And that was huge for us. It was in a time of going to nothing.
Yeah.
We were making something.
Exactly.
And then
that's going to be the foreseeable future. Look, I hope packed live events come in, but I still think there's going to be a crowd that's going to want to, for at least for a while, the next normal is there's going to be virtual still, and there's going to be socially distanced events.
Yeah, I'll get into that in a little. So we then started doing a lot of virtual stuff. So virtual live streams, DJ based live streams that we charged admission for, and we got a great deal of our fans to get involved in that. We started doing themed live streams.
You had a pre-existing fans that were already
there. we already had a fan base.
1, 2, and you went to this point, and I want to make sure it's clear for the audience. I had Ryan on from the Gathering Spot who talked about this too. Your mission is not live events.
Yeah.
Your mission is genre amplification.
Amplifying R&B music. Yes.
So you don't have to be only live events to do that. If you have a centered of you, so your mission hasn't changed. It's just the how and the application.
How. Yep. Absolutely. So we started doing that. And then, in the time when we started doing the drive-in shows, I was like, you know what? We want to expand. Why not, instead of waiting for live events to come back and when those are going to come back fully to like expand into other things and whatever, why don't we just, I had heard about equity crowdfunding and the ability to, make your fans and your current customers and friends and family actual investors in your company and co-owners in the company. And I started seeing a few people doing it. And I started looking into these platforms, and I said, this might be a way where we can accelerate our expansion and not have to wait on when live events come back. When live events come back, we'll be fine, and we'll be, you'll
be better positioned.
We'll be better positioned. Yeah.
It's about surviving between now and getting past this.
Yeah. And so for us, it was like, I think that if we allowed our audience to see what our growth plans were, instead of keeping it just locked in and this is what we're doing and this is where the company is going internally, why don't we like let our audience in a little bit more and see, because you only need a few of them to be able to get involved and invest and get involved in the growth. And so that's what we did. We put our heads down. We worked on this campaign for about 5 months, and then a few months ago, right now we are, I want to say just under 200,000.
That's great.
And it's still going, so we're encouraging people to go to startengine.com/R&B only. Check out the raise there.
Do me a favor, make sure your people send me that link, and when the podcast goes up, I will make sure
we'll do
promote it. I'll make sure the people that
thank you so much.
No, look, I think I think equity crowdfunding, to your point, and I want you to talk people through that process is a great opportunity for us to disrupt the status quo. And it's we can fund our own businesses. Like we understand and I've ran for office. I'm not sure if you look at me. I ran for office before.
Yes.
And when I ran for treasurer, I raised $2.5 million. And I started thinking about like, all right, this is a position that is important, but no one really cared about it. But if you can do that for running for office, we got what Barack Obama raised $1 billion. Think about it. If we raised $1 billion towards businesses, all those aren't going to make it, but some of them will, and probably turn into $1 billion businesses. And so imagine if we had that mindset as a community to invest in each other, to help each other build. And now we have the means to do that. We just have to get our mindset there.
Absolutely, Rob. And I mean, something that a lot of us, I don't think really are aware of, but I think it's less than 3% of all venture capital in 2020 was distributed to Black and brown founders.
And guess what? So that was a big increase, bro. It was 1%. So like, yes, you're right.
That's crazy. And
It's crazy.
so it's like, you know,
they're like, wow, we're
thinking
at
about
2%. They were like, we've doubled where we at. Like you were at nothing before. Like, okay.
Yeah. Yep. So it's like thinking about that. If we're not getting venture capital, we have to think about alternative ways of financing our businesses and our ideas. And and so I was just like, hey, I hadn't had much friends or other entrepreneurs that have sort of done it to sort of like show me the way. I do want to big shout out to Max though, because Max, she was doing a bunch of clubhouses on this stuff, and I was involved in so many of those clubhouses, emailing her back and forth and stuff like
Max
that. So
great.
she was a huge resource for us during that time. And so we were able to do that, and we've already been able to deploy some of that capital on a lot of these new initiatives that we're doing. Like I said, Sex Playlist is our first show that's about to come out, and we're in pre-production of that right now. So yeah, there's just so much stuff that we're about to do, and equity crowdfunding is just one of the financing vehicles or mechanisms that we've been able to take advantage of.
What else? What are some other advantages that you've seen in this that you've been able to take advantage of and see?
So I think that that was a big one in terms of the pandemic, right? But the other thing that why I say the pandemic was the best thing that happened to us was the time off, right? So the time that people were not going to live events has made the demand for live events
this is
so
true.
high.
Yeah, like I can't wait to go back to live events.
Yeah, right? See? So like what we do, right?
And now that I know that you do events, I can't wait to see some of yours.
Oh man, I can't wait for you to come. So what we do, at the crux of our business and how our business started is we create memories. We create lasting memories. There's when you come to an R&B only live show, you remember what you were wearing, you remember who you came with, you remember the way the music made you feel, and you remember the time of the year it was. You have all these memories, and then now with the phones and everything, like when people have stories and when they have when they share on their social media when they've come, a lot of times a year later that memory automatically pops back up, and you're like, oh man, I remember when I was at that R&B only live show. And when you don't have that, you yearn for that. And so that for us, we've done a few live events during the pandemic, socially distant shows, like I said, drive-in shows, and then digital events. But now, as the pandemic is starting to wane, we just announced the Texas tour, so it'll be a 75% capacity, and we have 3 shows coming up in Texas in May, San Antonio, Dallas, and Houston. And those shows are selling like crazy right now. Like they're just, people really want to be back. And as vaccinations continue to go up and increase, and the case rates, start to go down, we're going to start to see, I think, throughout the end of the year, a lot more, 50% capacity, 75% capacity, these type of limited capacity shows. And people are rushing to get tickets for them because they want that feeling back. The thing that we've learned with this pandemic is that there are alternatives to live events, right?
Yep.
There are, digital events, live streams, even stuff, Zoom calls, stuff like this. But there is no replacement.
There's no replacement
for live events.
No.
We cannot replace.
There's no replacement for in person. People still want that, crave that, need that.
Yeah.
But I do think this will now be a component of everything we do.
Absolutely.
So I tell this to people, like, just like you said, like COVID was more of an accelerator than a disruptor. Like parents are getting on Zoom, like grandparents, everyone knows how to do digital now. Everyone was forced to get into the digital world in a way that they had to if they wanted to do anything. And so now that's not going to leave us. So I do think there are now, and you've seen this innovation in this space in ways that you didn't see before. So I do think now when you have these live events, you're going to figure out ways, I believe, to also, do we have any digital component that we could add onto it to help us make some revenue or to engage audiences that can't participate with us in person? That's what I think the next normal is. And there's going to be more and more concentration in the digital world, but it's never going to replace it. It's now going to be another component that's always going to be there, and people will now use. At least that's how I see it.
Yeah, I agree. I totally agree with you, man.
Yep. All right. I got a couple of lightning round questions that we always ask people. So what's an important truth or conviction you have that people might find controversial or very few agree with you on?
Ooh. That very few people agree with me on.
Yeah, it's a tough question on purpose.
Yeah. I don't know if that very few people agree with me on, but I think that it would probably be just like, well, maybe. I think a lot of people always say to follow your passion.
Yeah.
And I think that like you should follow the opportunity, and opportunity, like, and I heard I think I heard a Professor Scott Galloway say this, but I think that you can find your passion as long as there's an opportunity, or passion comes from like some sort of progress and succeeding, right? So I think that like, you can, like, for instance, I was never really passionate about R&B music. I'm like a hip hop guy through and through, and that's the music that I grew up listening to. I grew up listening to R&B, of course, but once I saw the opportunity that lied and how underserved the genre was, and how there wasn't really like many different ecosystems built around it, I became extremely passionate about it. And over the last 5 years, I'm like, that's all I do is like, I'm just very involved in R&B culture because I saw the opportunity there. And so like, my passion, which is like hip hop music, or, I'm very passionate about like riding my bike on the beach, or, like that kind of thing. It was like, I'm not.
But you are passionate about music, and you're passionate about getting people exposed to music. And my guess is you're passionate about connecting people. And so all of those things played into this. So I hear you, because I have a similar story. Like I thought my path was I was going to be governor right now, or, something like that.
Yeah.
And that had been my direction for a long time. I was the youngest chairman of the University of Cincinnati. I did a lot of stuff in terms of building, getting ready for public service. And, it didn't go like I thought it would, despite a lot of things that despite doing everything that I could within my power for it to go well. That being said, so I had to, that's how I got into podcasting, because I wanted to figure out, okay, well, I need to use my voice in some way, so I feel like I'm having impact. And then that grew into doing media stuff, and that grew into doing things for entrepreneurs. And now it grew into artists and connecting artists, which I never in a million years thought I would be, never, but it does still connect.
But you saw the opportunity.
I saw the opportunity. There are three things I look at it like this. There's passion is one area. Like, you do have to really have some moving desire for what you're doing, because when things get going and it gets tough, if you don't have that, it's harder to keep going. But then there's two other things too. Then where are your talents aligned to? Like, I can feel passionate about wanting to be the next Michael Jordan. I can't jump that high. So I feel like, so I loved basketball. I was okay at basketball. I was passionate about it, but my skill set didn't align there. And then the third thing goes to where you just said, like, I look at this, it's your passion. It's, what are you uniquely skilled at? And then third, where can you have the most impact? And that goes to opportunity to me.
Yeah.
Right. So that's looking at those three spaces. And it's not, I think, go where you're passionate about is just too simplistic of advice, because that, to some people, they think that you got to like everything you're doing at every moment. That's not what we mean.
No, because definitely you won't. You won't. It's not happening. Yeah.
No, it's the opposite.
Even if you're walking and breathing in your passion. I know so many musicians that, they hate being on the road touring. They'd rather just be in the studio all day.
Yeah. I mean, look, I don't know. Does LeBron James like working out probably 4 hours before the game? Or did Kobe Bryant I think they learned to embrace the process because they had a passion for the long term, what they were doing. But it doesn't mean that you're going to like or love a whole lot of the process. It means it's kind of that long term thinking. It's like, I know what where the direction of this is going, and I stay focused on that long term versus the short term of the pain. All right.
Absolutely.
You have a committee, living or dead, to advise you on life or business. Who are these three people and why?
Oh, first one would be John Paul Getty.
Okay.
He's, for those that don't know, oil tycoon, somebody who at one point he was like the richest guy on earth. And yeah, just an extremely practical guy. Just really I've read a lot of stuff on him, read his book, and I just really am fascinated with like when you read something that's like really old, but the information still applies, right? So like,
Yeah.
I think when he wrote his book might have been like close to 80 or 100 years ago, something like that, maybe even 60 years ago, but like all of the information kind of still holds up, and just like how to operate in business, how to, just he was just talk. He kind of built his fortune by like mergers and acquisitions, and not being afraid to like get his hands dirty, right? So this guy would be worth millions of dollars, tens of millions, if not hundreds of millions, but like still like in the oil fields with his employees, you know what I mean? Like really like getting in the mud, literally.
That's why he was successful, because he understood every aspect of his business and his people.
Yes. And it was just really just a really good manager of people, and really treated his employees fairly and treated them right.
In an age
had a lot of issues
80 or 100 years ago, in an age that people that was not the standard. Like,
yes,
tycoon
exactly.
then was to figure out how much you can extract out of your people, and that's it.
Yeah. And had a lot of issues with his family, though. Was not the best family, man, because it's hard to balance. But I like his business principles a lot. So I would say him. I would say Jay-Z for sure on the contemporary side. Just because I just love how he's able to blend art and business so seamlessly.
He's done it better than anybody else. I mean, especially really not really having any role model or infrastructure in business. That's to do what he did in a time where right now we at least have other people, like we can reach out. The networking wasn't at the level that you can do now. Like we just met each other, but we can develop a relationship. He couldn't do that. He had to call everybody, which limits your capacity, right? So that's amazing what he did with very little guidance. All of it was just intelligence.
And while like people are thinking that you're lesser, or that you shouldn't be in a business meeting, or shouldn't be in this sort of room talking about business when they see you as a rapper, right? So like, let alone a black man, right? I mean, I just think that getting over the stigma of a rapper and being taken seriously in the business world is something that he's been able to do, and he's been able to do it without he's kind of been able to do it unapologetically on his terms.
And he's changed the expectations and narratives of so many people that without Jay-Z, does Kanye do what he does? Probably not, right? These other guys see like there's the model, sort of like what LeBron James is doing for sports too.
Absolutely. Yep. So, and then I think lastly, just my mom probably. My mom.
Got to include mom in there.
Yeah, she's been huge in advising a lot of just my life up to this point. So I wouldn't want to, remove that from the situation. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. Yeah.
Final question. You got a billboard, Google ad. That's the slogan for your life, or it can be business, whatever you want. What does that say? Why?
Okay. I'll flip this a little bit. I would put two billboards, right?
Okay.
And I would specifically put one at the beginning of a windy road.
Okay.
And at the end of that windy road, I would put on the first billboard, I would say, this is a windy road. And then you'd go up and you go the windy road and you go and finish the windy road. And it might be like 5 miles later. And at the end, I would put on the end of the windy road, I would put another billboard that said, "That's life." And
Yep.
somebody said that to me at a gas station one time, like literally after a windy road. And I was like, man, this road is extremely windy. And the guy working at the gas station, he just looked at me and said, "That's life." And it just stuck with me. It was one of the most profound things somebody's ever said to me that was just a stranger. And it just has always stuck with me. It happened last year. And that's what I think about all the time when I'm going through some challenges or when I'm going through something that I don't know when is going to end. Or, I can't exactly see the future clearly, or, whatever. I just embrace it. And I'm like, that's life. You will get out of the road eventually. You know what I mean? But
and then it'll get windy again, but you'll get out.
Yeah, you're gonna come with, but that's life. Like you can't escape the windy road sometimes, and it's okay. It's okay if you're in the middle of a windy road. Like, sometimes you're like, wow, how am I gonna get out of here? How am I gonna make it out? But you make it out, and so yeah, that's what I'll put on my billboard.
Jabari, brother, it was good having you on, man. This is this is great, man. Let's definitely stay in touch. Appreciate you.
Absolutely, Rob. Thank you so much for having me, man. This was amazing.